Tulsi Gabbard just fired back at President Obama's statement regarding the Russia conspiracy. And you know what? She did not hold back. So let's get into it. This is going to be a good one. So, unless you guys are living under a rock, President Obama actually did respond to President Trump's accusations in what turned out to be a rare political moment. Apparently, President Obama actually doesn't respond to a lot of these allegations, but he did today, which I would say is very interesting. So, I know Axios didn't break this story, but I am going to use them as a source because I do think they do a great job of summarizing what happened. So, go ahead and check this out with me. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. That was Patrick Ruddenbush, a spokesperson for Obama, said in a statement. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. He added, these bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes, Raudenbush said. And what I thought was really interesting was this last part. The findings, he continued, were affirmed in a 2020 report by the Bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, led by then Chairman Marco Rubio. So I thought that was very, very fascinating. But here is Tulsi Gabbard's response, essentially calling that just complete BC. All right. So I thought this was great. Also, if you like having conversations like this, if you think they matter, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does make a huge difference. All right, check this out. Our Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
Give me your response to what we heard from former President Obama there. He's saying that none of this makes any sense, that this is a distraction. What do you say to that?
It's the art of deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement, which doesn't actually address the issue that was revealed in great detail in the over 100 documents that we released last week and the documents that we will be releasing later this week that point to the undeniable fact that you laid out in your introduction to this segment, is that the intelligence community had one assessment, that Russia did not have the intent or capability to try to impact the outcome of the U.S. election leading up to Election Day. The same assessment was made after Donald Trump was elected by the American people as president in 2016, defeating Hillary Clinton. And it wasn't until after that pulled President's Daily Brief document that you referenced that the Principals Committee was called in the National Security Council, and President Obama then directed Obama's DNI James Clapper to lead the effort to create this new intelligence community assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow attempted to influence the outcome of the U.S. election. So this is the thing that I think people should pay attention to, is neither the message from President Obama's office, neither the statements coming from Democrats in Congress today and their friends in the propaganda media. None of them are addressing this fact that there was a shift, a 180-degree shift from the intelligence community's assessment leading up to the election to the one that President Obama directed be produced after Donald Trump won the election, that completely contradicted those assessments that had come previously. The second thing I want to address that's very important, Laura, is that you in the clip that you played, you saw John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey stated with high confidence this January intelligence community assessment that they drafted at the direction of President Obama. The fact is that they used already discredited information like the Steele dossier. They knew it was discredited at that time, yet they used it as a source for this document that they claim to have high confidence in. They used intelligence that some of these intelligence community professionals rejected previously because of the lack of credibility and the lack of the ability to vet with any kind of confidence whether or not that information or intelligence was accurate and could be used for an assessment. There's a long laundry list of facts and intelligence reporting that directly contradict the statement coming from President Obama's office and those who are trying to deflect away from what actually happened, which was after Donald Trump was elected, led by President Obama, there was an effort to create a document that would serve as a foundation for what would be a years-long coup against President Trump, therefore trying to subvert the will of the American people who sent him to the White House in 2016.
Tulsi Gabbard, I love it. My goodness, Tulsi Gabbard pretty much saying that this statement by President Obama is full of contradiction, deflection, and essentially a poor attempt at manipulating the public. Do not fall for it. They have the receipts. This is clear as day. But you know what? The news actually it doesn't stop here with this amazing moment with Tulsi calling out President Obama. But look at this. Recently, Speaker Johnson just stepped up to the mic and tore the mask completely off. I loved it. He posted this on his X account saying Republicans won't be lectured on transparency by the same Democrats who orchestrated one of the most shameless and dangerous cover-ups in history. Biden's obvious mental and physical decline. When they claim they're for transparency, roll the tape. They lied to the American people for years to hide Joe Biden's decline. Check this out. I thought this was absolutely phenomenal.
But we're done being lectured on transparency by the same party that orchestrated one of the most shameless, dangerous political cover-ups in the history of this country or any government on the face of planet Earth. If the Democrats want to talk transparency, I'm happy to rewind the tape. 366 days ago, President Joe Biden was unceremoniously forced off the Democrat ticket. Everybody knows why. Even after millions of Americans had already cast their primary votes for him, the self-proclaimed party of democracy threw out their nominee, the sitting president of the United States, for his disastrous debate performance. On the debate stage, President Biden revealed to the American people what Democrats in Congress spent 4 long years trying to hide, that the president of the United States of America was in rapid mental decline and unable to continue serving as the leader of the free world. I'm going to say that again. The man holding the most powerful office on the face of the earth, who we now know was being propped up by his staff and Democrats in Congress, was in rapid mental decline. It was as shocking as it was dangerous, and they all participated in it. Nearly every single one of the Democrats who shamelessly attempted to pull the wool over our eyes still holds office today. You ought to be chasing them down the hallways asking for their responses on that. We released a 14-minute long video yesterday with just a small sample of the countless receipts of the Democrats at every level spending this fantastical lie to the American people. I encourage every reporter in this room to go watch that. You ought to use the clips and you ought to go ask them about it. And remember that the same Democrats who lied to us for years are now trying to convince you they stand for transparency. They participated in one of the greatest political scandals in all of history, and the House Republicans are not going to allow this to be whitewashed from the historical record.
You know, isn't it nice to have a president who's actually president? If you ask me, that's one of the best things about it, especially coming from President Biden's administration. You know what else I saw today? This looks like this is some breaking news. Check it out. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee will now ban transgenders from competing against women, caving to the Trump administration. Wow, what a victory for women's sports. And, you know, I feel like there are just an overwhelming amount of victorious moments for the Trump administration. And I feel like things like this just keep on happening. And I just love being able to get to absorb all of it. Megyn Kelly actually tweeted this, and she said, "He's living up to every single promise he made that made me endorse and vote for him. It is remarkable." You know, I know that we talk a lot about President Trump's, you know, some of the areas where he's fallen short, right? And some of these are actually very public moments. And while unfortunate, I do think that the office of the presidency is always going to be imperfect because humans are imperfect. I don't think that that's an excuse, but it is an immutable fact. But one thing is for sure, one thing is absolutely clear, and it is that President Trump's presidency is generating an enormous amount of wins on behalf of the American people. And there are countless examples, including this. All right. So I love it. Anyways, that is the video. I'd love to know what you think about all this from Tulsi Gabbard, completely stunning the American people and essentially shocking former President Barack Obama in what he attempted to deflect, unfortunately, as well as this awesome moment with Speaker Johnson not playing any more of their games. I love it. Anyways, tell me what you agree with, we disagree with, as always, and I will see you next time. If you made it this far, please consider liking and subscribing. It does make a very big difference, and hope you have a good rest of your day. Episode's over already? Geez, that was fast. Well, they say beautiful things do not last forever, but feel free to watch and listen to another one of these episodes if you're interested in those conversations as well. Also, this next part is huge. Make sure to obliterate that like and subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never skip a beat. I also have a newsletter where we dive into the news, politics, and ideas that shape our future. If you're interested in signing up, I'd really appreciate that. Anyways, that's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.